I grew up in a town that didn't even have its own Walmart until I was halfway through high school. Just fields, a few streets named after trees, and a Dairy Queen that shut down every winter. You either stayed or got out, and most folks didn't make it past the county line. Her name was Rachel McKinney. We were in the same homeroom from 7th grade on. She was one of those girls who somehow pulled off braces, frizzy hair, and confidence all at once. She had this laugh that made you want to be funny just to hear it again. I was quiet. Played baseball until junior year, did okay in classes, never caused trouble. My dad ran the local hardware store, my mom worked nights at the hospital. We weren't poor, but we didn't have anything extra. Rachel and I started dating the summer before senior year. It just kind of happened. We ran into each other at the county fair, rode the Ferris wheel together, shared a funnel cake, and that was that. It was the kind of love that feels permanent when you're 17, even though deep down you know nothing really is. She talked a lot about getting out of town. I'm not gonna die in this place, she'd say. I'd nod like I understood even though I didn't want to leave. I liked the quiet. I liked my folks. I thought maybe we could stay, maybe build something small and solid. We stayed together after graduation. She went to community college nearby. I started working full-time at the hardware store. We rented a little place above a florist shop. The kind of apartment where you could hear your neighbors arguing through the walls and the toilet ran if you didn't jiggle the handle. At first it was good. Better than good, actually. We had no money but laughed all the time. We cooked together, watched old sitcoms on her laptop, made dumb inside jokes that didn't make sense to anyone else. But somewhere around the 1-year mark, things started shifting. It was little things at first. She started hanging out with some girls from her classes. They'd go to Columbus for the weekend, come back with new shoes or a purse she didn't really need. She started saying things like, "It's not wrong to want nice stuff." I didn't argue. I just kept clocking in, fixing screen doors and hauling paint. I thought love was enough. Thought that if I just held steady, she'd remember what mattered. Then she started talking about this guy Cameron. He was in her marketing class. Drove a black BMW and had some family money. "He's funny," she said once. Like, smart funny. I didn't like the way she said it. I didn't say anything though. Just nodded. Same as always. Looking back, I think that's when I should have spoken up. Or walked away. But I didn't. Because I'd already decided she was my person. I closed the youth chapter of my life and wrote her name at the bottom. I didn't think about whether the story still fit. She cheated on me 2 months later. I found out by accident. Her phone lit up on the coffee table while she was in the shower. I wasn't trying to snoop, but the preview said, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to do it again." I stared at it for a long time before I did anything. Then I stood up, grabbed my coat, and left. I slept in my truck that night. Next morning, I packed a duffel bag and left the keys on the counter. I didn't yell. Didn't demand an apology. Just walked out. Because deep down, I think I already knew I'd lost her long before that text message came through. After I left the apartment, I stayed in my truck for 2 nights. Slept in the parking lot behind the old movie theater, the one that shut down after streaming took over. Nobody bothered me. This was the kind of town where people look the other way until you give them a reason not to. I went back to my folks' place after that. Told them Rachel and I had broken up. Didn't say why. My mom hugged me. My dad didn't say anything, just handed me a cup of coffee and sat next to me while the sun came up. I moved into the basement. Old couch, concrete floor, a water heater that knocked every few hours. But it was dry and quiet. I started picking up extra shifts at the store. Kept busy. Kept my head down. I saw Rachel once about 3 weeks after it all blew up. She came into the store to get some paint for her mom's place. She looked good. Better than I wanted her to. "Hey," she said, like nothing happened. I nodded. "Hey." We didn't say much. Just small talk. She didn't mention him. I didn't ask. But when she walked out, I watched her get into that black BMW and I knew it was over in a way that couldn't be patched. That was the first time I really let myself feel it. That this wasn't just a fight or a phase. This was her choosing something different. Something I couldn't be part of. Over the next year, I watched her life from a distance. Social media mostly. Photos of her at wine bars, at rooftop restaurants, at some lake house I'd never heard her mention before. Always dressed like she was in a catalog. Always smiling. Sometimes with him. Sometimes not. She looked happy. I wanted to hate her. But mostly I just felt small. Like I'd been passed over for the shinier version of life. Like everything I thought was enough. Love, loyalty, history. Wasn't worth anything when stacked next to money and polish. That's when I started pulling away from everything. Friends stopped asking me to hang out. I quit going to church. I stopped going out altogether. Just worked, slept, repeated. The quiet became a habit. Years went by. I got promoted to assistant manager. Got a new truck. My folks got older, slower. Mom had a fall. Dad started forgetting things. I stayed, took care of them, paid the bills, fixed what broke. Sometimes I thought about leaving, moving to a bigger town, starting over. But something always stopped me. Maybe fear, maybe guilt, maybe just habit. Rachel left town for good not long after. I heard she moved to Charlotte, got engaged to a lawyer. Or maybe it was a guy in finance. I don't know. Didn't matter. She was gone. And I was still here. Funny thing is, the pain doesn't stay sharp forever. It dulls. Becomes a part of you. Like an old scar you forget is there until you catch your reflection in the wrong light. And that's how it was for a long time. Just work and routine. I got older. Grew a gut. Lost some hair. Still lived in the same house. Same street. Same town. Until last year. Last year I got a message on Facebook. A name I hadn't seen in over a decade. And that's when everything changed again. The message came on a Tuesday night. I was sitting in my recliner, half watching a baseball game I didn't care about, sipping a beer that had gone warm. The kind of night where nothing happens and that's fine. Just the usual quiet. Then my phone buzzed. Hey. Not sure if you remember me. It's Ava. Ava Chandler. I sat up. We hadn't spoken since senior year. Not after graduation. Not after I started dating Rachel. Nothing. She'd been one of those people I always meant to look up but never did. Like a song stuck in your head with no name. We weren't a thing back then. But we almost were. That's the thing. She sat behind me in biology. Used to draw on my notebook when I wasn't looking. Little stars, smiley faces, once a dinosaur with my name on it. I never erased any of it. There was this night, end of junior year, where we almost kissed. School bonfire. Everyone drunk off cheap beer and bad decisions. She and I ended up walking the track, talking about college and dreams and all the stuff teenagers think they understand. She said, "You ever think about just running away?" I said, "Sometimes." She said, "I'd go with you." And I didn't say anything. We stood there for a second too long. She leaned in a little. I looked at my shoes. That was it. Moment passed. We never talked about it again. A few months later, Rachel and I got together. Ava kind of disappeared after that. Went off to a college 2 states away. I heard she married young. Didn't think much more about it. Until now. I stared at her message for 5 minutes before I replied. "Of course I remember you." She messaged back fast. "Saw your name pop up. Thought I'd say hi. You still in town?" "Yep. Haven't made it far." "Me neither. Back here now. Divorced. Just me and my dog. Thought maybe we could catch up sometime." That was the hook. Simple. Casual. And I should have known right then. Should have known this wasn't just a friendly catch-up. Should have felt that old ache in my chest. That unfinished business kind of ache. But I didn't. I just smiled like an idiot and said, "Yeah, I'd like that." We met that Friday. Local diner, same one where half the town still eats breakfast on Sundays. She looked older, sure. We both did. But she had that same laugh. Same way of tucking her hair behind her ear when she was thinking. She hugged me like we hadn't skipped 20 years. We talked for 2 hours. It was easy. Too easy. She said, "I always thought you and Rachel would get married. You were so serious about her." I said, "Yeah, I was." She looked down at her coffee. "You know I had a thing for you back then, right?" That was the second hook. The one that stuck. I didn't say anything. Just smiled. Let the silence stretch. When we left, she said, "Don't be a stranger." And I said, "I won't." I watched her walk to her car. Watched her drive off. Stood in the lot long after her taillights disappeared. Because suddenly, I wasn't in my 30s anymore. I was 17 again. And this time, I wasn't going to look at my shoes. The second time we met, she invited me to her place. Said she had an old porch swing she couldn't fix herself and asked if I'd take a look. Could have said no. Could have recommended someone else. But I said yeah without even thinking. She lived in a little rental on the edge of town, not far from where the cornfields start. One of those houses with chipping paint and wildflowers growing out front. Her dog, some scruffy mutt with a crooked tail, barked once then ran circles around my legs. The swing wasn't really broken. Just needed a new bolt and some oil. We sat out there for hours after I fixed it, drinking lemonade like it was still 1999. She asked about my folks, the store, whatever happened to the old baseball crew. I asked about her divorce carefully. He was nice until he wasn't, she said. Cheated. Twice. I stayed the first time. Why? I asked. She looked at the sky. Because I thought that's what grown-ups do. Forgive. We didn't talk about that night on the track, not yet. But it hung there. Unspoken and obvious. Over the next few weeks we kept seeing each other. Sometimes at her place. Sometimes mine. Walks, dinners, long drives down back roads. Always felt easy. Familiar. One night, we sat on her porch watching a storm roll in. She said, you know, I used to wonder what would have happened if you'd kissed me that night. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, I wondered too. She looked at me. Why didn't you? I thought you deserved better. She laughed, soft and sad. I didn't want better. I wanted you. And then she kissed me. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't like the movies. It was quieter than that. Like something long overdue. Like a sigh that had waited 20 years to leave your chest. I stayed the night. We didn't rush into anything. Just laid there, side by side, her head on my shoulder. I felt more whole in that moment than I had in years. But here's the part no one tells you: old love can be dangerous. Not because it's fiery or reckless, but because it's known. It makes you think you can rewrite the past if you just try hard enough. I started spending more nights there. She'd cook. I'd bring beer. We'd talk about old teachers, old friends, what we lost and what we never got. I started picturing a life with her. One that wasn't just patched together with old memories. But things don't stay perfect. Not for long. It started small. She asked if I ever thought about leaving town. I said no. Don't you want more than this? She asked. More than what? This place. That job. This life. I shrugged. It's home. She didn't say anything. But her silence was loud. Next week, she mentioned a job in Nashville. Editing work. Better pay. A fresh start. Just thinking about it, she said. And suddenly, I felt like I was 17 again, watching someone I loved drift towards something shinier. I didn't tell her not to go. I didn't fight. Because deep down, I still didn't believe I was enough to make someone stay. She got the job. They called her on a Wednesday. I was at her place, fixing a loose drawer in the kitchen. She answered in the other room, but I could tell from the way her voice changed that it was good news. She came back and smiling, holding her phone like it might disappear. They offered it, she said. Full-time. Decent salary. They want me to start in 3 weeks. I smiled too. Said, that's great. But something inside me dropped. She hugged me, kissed my cheek, and started rambling about apartments and neighborhoods and what kind of couch she might get. I nodded along. Didn't say much. She didn't ask me to come with her. And I didn't offer. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew how this worked. I'd seen it before. Rachel, the college girls, even friends who made it out, they never looked back. You either left or you stayed. And I'd always been the one who stayed. That weekend, we didn't talk about the move at all. We just made dinner, watched an old movie, fell asleep on the couch like nothing had changed. But the days got shorter after that. She was on Zillow every night, taking calls from her new manager, making lists. And I just kept showing up like clockwork, helping her measure curtains and pack boxes. One night, a week before she was set to leave, she said, I wish I met you after all this. After what? After the mistakes. After the divorce. After I learned what I really wanted. You think it would have worked then? She looked at me. I don't know. Maybe. That was the last honest conversation we had. The night before she left, we sat on her porch again. Same swing. Same storm clouds in the distance. I'll visit, she said. I nodded. Yeah. I mean it. I know. But we both knew better. The next morning, I helped load her car. Gave the dog one last pat. She hugged me tight, whispered, thank you for being here. I said always. And then she was gone. No drama. No fight. Just gone. I stood in her empty driveway for a long time after. The house looked smaller. Quieter. Like it hadn't belonged to either of us. I went home, cracked a beer, and stared at the wall. The swing still creaked in my mind. The dog's paws on the porch. Her voice saying, I don't know. Maybe. That's the thing about almosts. They don't break your heart. They just wear it down slow. After she left, the days blurred together. Work, sleep, coffee, repeat. I didn't tell anyone about Ava. Most folks barely remembered her anyway. And the ones who did just said, wasn't she the one with the older brother who wrecked his Camaro? That's how small towns work. You become someone else's memory real quick. Her house sat empty for 2 months before a family moved in. I saw toys in the yard one day and closed the curtain without thinking. She texted me once. About a week after she left. Made it safe. Place is smaller than it looked online, but cute. Hope you're good. I stared at it for 10 minutes before replying. Glad you made it. You'll do great there. She didn't respond. I didn't expect her to. And that was it. That was the big, slow ending. No screaming. No slammed doors. Just a slow fade into silence. I kept working at the store. Dad passed away that winter, quiet heart attack in his sleep. Mom moved in with my sister across state. I kept the house, but it felt hollow without the two of them. Some nights I'd sit in the garage with the radio low, drinking a beer like he used to. Not because I needed the drink, just the habit. The normalcy of it. One day I saw Rachel at the grocery store. She was older, of course. A little heavier. Still walked like she had someplace to be. We made eye contact at the end of the aisle. She nodded once. I nodded back. She turned and walked away. And that was it. I never married. Never left. Just filled my time with small things. Fixing old tools. Reading the same books again. Watching the seasons change out my window like they owed me something. Sometimes I think about Ava and that porch swing. Wonder if she kept it in storage or left it behind. Sometimes I think about that night at the track. How different everything might have been if I just had a little courage. But most of the time I don't think at all. Because there's nothing left to figure out. Some people leave. Some people chase things. Some people cheat. And some of us just stay put and learn how to live in the leftovers. And that's not tragic. It's just what happens when you don't make the leap. When you let other people write your ending before you pick up the pen. I turned 49 last week. Didn't throw a party. Didn't even take the day off work. Just picked up donuts for the crew and called it a day. No calls from Ava. None from Rachel, obviously. My sister texted HBD party popper and Mom called to remind me that Dad used to say 5-0 was the start of the slow fade. I laughed even though it wasn't really funny. That night, I sat on the porch. Not Ava's porch. Not some dream porch from a life I never built. Just mine. The one I grew up in. Same boards, same view. I listened to the crickets. The wind in the trees. A truck downshifting 3 streets over. And I thought about how many people had passed through this little town, how many of them I'd loved or nearly loved or maybe just missed the chance to love right. Rachel chasing money and sparkle, trading something steady for something that looked better in pictures. Ava holding out hope we could rewrite the past but needing more than I could give her. Me, the guy who never quite left, never quite changed, never quite figured out how to be anything more than what I already was. I used to think there'd be some kind of redemption. That if I waited long enough someone would come back. That they'd see what they missed. That I'd get my turn. But nobody comes back. Not really. They move on, they start over, they become people you wouldn't recognize anymore. And you just keep living with their outlines in your head. Now I run the store alone. Hired a couple part-timers to help during the busy months. I fix things. I sweep. I keep the lights on. Some days that feels like enough. I still walk by the diner where I met Ava that first time. Still pass the apartment above the florist shop where Rachel and I burned out. Still see shadows of what could have been, like reflections in dirty glass. But here's the thing no one tells you, peace doesn't always come with answers. Sometimes peace is just the quiet that settles in once you stop asking. I'm not happy. Not really. But I'm not angry either. I get up. I make coffee. I drive to work. I come home. And some nights I sit on this porch alone and watch the wind move through the trees. And I think. I was there. I loved. I lost. And I'm still here. That's not much. But it's mine.